You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge.
Brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
Greetings to you, and welcome to another edition of MIB Unleashed, Real Black Talk. I'm your host, Brother Wayne, my partner and co-host, Brother Maurice. We'd like to welcome you to another edition of what we do over the viral version of what we do. We are a mentoring company, Mentors in Black. You can check us out at mentorsinblack.net, mentorsinblack.net, excuse me, Mentors in Black, or MIB.net. I'm gonna get it right here in a minute. MIBnets.com. Thank you. MIBnets.com. Go to the website we have and look into what we do. We are really interested in deprogramming and restoring original pride to our youth, our young people. And that's what we do. Give us a call, have us come to your city, and we'll help you out. But today, that's going to be what we're going to target. We're going to target our youth with today's discussion. We had promised that we would get into a discussion about hip-hop and the strong music industry and all that it is doing and has done in our community and continues to do to our community. Music, as you know, is one of the most powerful forms of communication. And I personally think that we are overlooking, it's sort of like what I call the white elephant in the room, hip-hop. Yes, it's there, it's pervasive, it's impactful, but we are not really focusing in on what it's doing and its potential to do among us. So we're going to try to chop it up a little bit today and see what happens. In our view, matter of fact, we do have as a part of our curriculum, we do a piece called Hip Hop Friend or Foe. And so you'll probably we'll get some of that today. Right. As you know, the beginning of this genre of music is an amazing story. It's a genre of music that really comes from nothing, comes from zero. Right. It's a creative form of music, and a lot of people say that the only thing that, in terms of music, that the black people can really claim in this country is blues. My favorite artist, and one of my favorite artists, Gil Scott-Heron. Yes, sir. He has the famous comment that the blues was born in America because America provided the atmosphere. I agree with that. Yes, I'm personally not into blues.
I don't care for it.
You don't care. But it is a form of music that, of course, we began, people say, comes out of the spirituals. Spirituals was the high hope part. Blues was the realities of it. Because our condition was certainly on blues. Right. Then, of course, there's jazz. And at one time, it was kind of called bebop. Right. And if you know, that was the up version of blues. Right. It was the, because many of us, just like I am saying, don't really want to focus in language in that B flat. We don't want to be down. We'd rather be up. Right. And then something came along called disco.
Okay.
That whole disco thing was a perverted version of something. We don't know what it was, but I do know that it had an impact on creating hip hop because people turned away from that and went back to the old soul.
Right. So
You just mentioned went back to the soul records and the old 45s. And what happened was they started spinning those 45s and then rapping over them. And the big deal was the MC, the person that could go around with the two turntables. And usually what they would do, and I know many of you don't know this story, but they would take the break in the song.
right.
The break in the song is usually that part of the song that you really like.
Yeah.
You know, the breakdown, what James Brown used to call it, or the bridge.
Right.
Take me to the bridge, what James Brown used to say. And that was that part of the song that kind of broke things down and made you really remember the song. Well, they started playing that part of the song over and over.
Right.
That's sort of kind of the origins and the beginning of that which we call hip hop. And from that, the rapper who was called the MC or the master of ceremony, he kind of took off from there, and now we're just way out there with that whole hip hop and what it is. And we are saying that in its origin, it was a magnificent style of music. It was created from nothing, showcased our ability to make lemonade out of lemon, so to speak, showcased our ability to be imaginative and creative. And now here we are. Every other song we play on, we hear is mass murder and mayhem. And the reason that we should take this subject up is because we understand that just like in the civil rights movement, music played a very vital role in keeping those people uplifted and moving forward. You would hear those persons say that when we all got arrested, we would go into jail and we would sing spirituals. The one thing, the famous song on that very brilliant documentary called, the very brilliant historical documentary on the civil rights movement. I can't think of the name of it right
PBS program?
Yeah, it's a 7-8 part documentary on the civil rights movement. Well, the one thing we did right was the day we started the fight.
Right.
Keep your eyes on the prize.
That's the name of it.
The name of it, Your Eyes on the Prize. And so they would sing these songs while being locked up because they were being civil disobedient and they would get locked up. And these songs would keep their spirit up and make it so that they'd be willing to go back and get arrested again.
Right, and they stay in that jail cell all night, and they had their spirit flowing so that that pain from being locked up was diminished.
Right. So if you know any of those veterans of the civil rights movement, I guarantee you they could sing you one of those songs that kept their spirits going when they were being incarcerated or fighting the dogs and the hoses and
Being beat with the billy club.
being beat with billy clubs and that. So we're saying that music is a very valuable tool and it can be used. And so it shouldn't be given short shrift. And it seems like that's what we're doing with this hip hop. We're not paying attention to its impact on our community.
Right.
And let's state for the record our love for hip hop.
Our love for hip hop.
Me and you, I'm saying.
Right.
We're not haters of hip hop.
No, our hip hop conversation is based on the fact of how it's being driven to another level. We have experienced hip hop from its beginning. When it started, we were there.
Yeah.
So we do not have any qualms about hip hop. Now, some of the versions and forms of hip hop, although they may seem to be creative and hip hopish on the surface, beneath the surface, there's an objective, an agenda. And we're realizing that and we're pointing that out so that the listening audience will be able to understand that, hey, look, we're giving hip hop a bad rap through some of the individuals that are creating certain forms of hip hop that doesn't agree with the whole hip hop nation.
But what I was just trying to make sure that our listeners understood and our viewers understood was that we're not any of those cats that didn't come up with hip hop. When it started back in the 70s, I know I was high school age and I was in love with Sugar Hill Gang and
Curtis Blow.
And that Curtis Blow. I mean, yeah, so, you know,
African Bambaataa.
Hey, we listen to some hip hop.
Right.
It's just that we are recognizing where it is today, and we don't think enough is being said about how it has turned into a foe as opposed to a friend.
Well, it gets back to our disclaimer, and I think that
Which we should do.
we have to. For the record, we're not homophobic. We're not anti-white establishment. We're not anti-white. We're not racist. We're not anti-Semitic. We're not any of those negative words that you could place on us. So we can get that out there. And today we're going to say that we're not anti-hip hop.
And anti-youth.
And anti-youth.
Because that's what we're going to do today, to talk about some of this issues that's affecting our young people. Now we have to say that, we feel, so that our comments are not hamstrung by those titles of people like the label you when you just tell the truth, when you're just giving your perspective and being truthful. That's why we call ourselves Real Black Talk. Right,
and we can be corrected. Now, if you correct us properly, now that's a point I want to make. We do accept all types of criticism as long as it's within reason, because we're not going to get in this little box and stay there. We're going to be 360 degrees, I believe.
It's important to have this conversation because, like what I was pointing out earlier, is the impact of music. Music can do many things. It can change your emotional feeling. It can pump you up. It can bring sadness to you. It can do. Music is a very powerful tool, and we need to understand that when our young people who are out here without information, that's what we're finding, is that the real problem is that our young people are without information. We haven't done a good enough job, meaning adults, of teaching the history to our youth. They don't know. And that's why you can have certain young people who come along and all of the stimulus that they've gotten is not civil rights stimulus, it's not struggle for your rights stimulus, it's not establishing yourself as a man and woman in this society stimulus. It's that all things are over, or the war, the struggle has already happened.
Right.
Everything is perfectly fine now. It's all up to you as an individual to carve out your niche and your way into the society, and only part of that is true.
Right. Because the struggle continues. The struggle is daily.
That's what we're saying, and the struggle that we're talking about is that the struggle for a former enslaved people to establish their humanity and their right to freedom. I was just listening the other day, though, that no one can give you freedom.
Right.
Freedom is that which you are born with. You are a human being on the planet Earth. The sun represents freedom. It's there for all. It has no judge on you whether or not you're a good person or a bad person. It serves you because you are born into the earth.
Right.
It's free. Freedom. No one can give you freedom. Freedom is your birthright. But what someone can do is they can deny you your freedom.
Right.
They can interfere with your ability to express your freedom. And that's what has happened to us in this society, is that our freedom was denied us.
And I want to point out, based on what you're saying about the freedoms, and one of those freedoms is freedom of speech. And we want to point that out as far as it gets to the lyrics in hip hop. Your freedom of speech is limited in a particular format as far as scope. Now, you can talk about or speak on whatever topic you want to speak on, but you have to be respectful in that presentation, I believe. So my point is that when we hear the current rap lyrics from some of the rappers, and I want to point out a couple of them. I'm not a Lil Wayne hater, and I'm not a Rick Ross hater. But when you put yourself out there like that in those particular songs where Rick Ross referenced raping young ladies on the date rape drug, and then Lil Wayne brings out the statement towards Emmett Till, and then he doesn't come out and say that, hey, look, I was lyrically incorrect. My freedom of speech was in error. I apologize to the family. I apologize to my culture, my race, my black people, that I was in error. But one thing I want to point out, and I'm going to be brief, I want to point out the fact that when these guys are writing, since they have the freedom to get high, to get on drugs, meaning alcohol, marijuana, pharmaceutical drugs, when they get on that particular high, they're actually subject to write anything. So I'm saying that we may need to really look at this thing as a drug-induced writing experience.
Well, not only are they subject to write anything, we pointed out last week how they are encouraged to write things.
Right.
There's certain lyrics, there's certain songs that are encouraged.
Right.
And we should get to that. But before we get there, let me point out that we do know that he never used the word rape in that lyric, in that song that he wrote. He talked about how he could have sex with her and she wouldn't know. Right,
but after she was under the influence.
Right.
So if she doesn't give her consent, then that's not considered consensual sex, which you can define that as the law states. When someone does not give consent, that would be considered.
I know that, but I'm just saying, for the record, he did not use the term rape in that lyric.
But it was a conclusion.
But that's right. It could easily be concluded that that's what he meant.
Because we have had young ladies in our city that have been date raped. Put on the drug.
I know what you're saying.
Yes, sir. But you wanted to clarify that he didn't say I'm gonna rape her.
That's right. That's right. Because someone else made that as a point of contention.
Right.
I heard. So I just want to be clear that we do know that as well.
Right.
But that's just a part of what we are discussing as why we have to address this issue. For instance, and let me use the Jewish people again as an example.
Okay.
One of the things that the Jewish people have among themselves is really vital, and it keeps Jewish conduct within the parameters of what's respectable.
Right.
They have something that they call, when you do something, and they say that you are a self-hating Jew.
Right.
That is the worst label that a Jewish person can get from another Jewish person.
Right.
Oh, he's a self-hating Jew.
Right.
But see, that keeps those persons mindful of their behavior and what they even say about their people. We, on the other hand, haven't implemented such restraints. And what I mean by that is that we never, I said earlier, passed on the information of the struggle to our children.
Right.
And so they don't come up with that understanding, and they see themselves as just free individuals who are exercising what you just pointed out, their freedom of speech.
Right. A perfect example of that is Madoff. Madoff was the one who came up with the Ponzi scheme, and he built all of those individuals around him and investors out of billions of dollars. And he was Jewish, and he received a lot of Jewish support as far as investors, and they came out against him publicly, saying that he is not a example of a Jewish person.
Well, and see, we could do the same thing and ingrain in our youth a respect. See, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about restoring original pride to our youth. See, that's what's necessary. That's what keeps writers from writing lyrics like that. That's what keeps producers from producing songs like that. And another example is this young man by the name of something, the producer or the creator. He was hired by Pepsi to do commercials for them. And he did this real racist commercial, black guy, 22-year-old young black man. And he did this real racist commercial for Pepsi, where it had all of the stereotypes in them, from the stereotypical scary black criminal, and the white lady was the victim, and you know, it's just complete with all of the stereotypes. But it was done by a young African American
that was most likely not conscious of the implications that he was putting forth.
That's the point. He's only trying to come up with something that he feel would be successful. They say, yes, that's good.
Very creative.
Very creative. But it's insensitive to your people.
Right.
You would, and so, but he not knowing that, I'm assuming he doesn't know
Right.
it, or at least he's not fearful of the backlash that would come if he does do something like
Right.
that. And that's what we don't have among us. We don't have enough of us who are willing to censure and even ostracize those persons who demonstrate what we would say self-hating blacks.
Well, and I want to point out, based on what he produced, I think that he found that it was humorous and he found that it was creative, but he didn't look at the fact that there was a downside. And
That's what we found.
Right.
You remember the conversations we had right after Trayvon case
Right.
with the young people. At the time, we was working with young people in the classrooms, and we just had to stop everything and talk about
and ask them what they thought.
ask them what they thought about it, and the level of insensitivity
Right.
was too high.
Right.
And he should have had the hood on and these kinds of things.
Right.
And so what we're saying, y'all, is that we have to do a better job of teaching the young people all of the sensitivities that come along with being black in this country.
Right.
Because they don't have them. They're going to do music like that. They're going to consume self-hating music. They'll consume self-destructive music. They will then turn and regurgitate those self-destructive lyrics, and then they'll even put them into practice.
And then the killer part about that, Brother Wayne, is the killing part about it. Because when they hear these types of lyrics that we're discussing today, when they hear violence, they think that that's normal. And I understand that when you take Los Angeles, California, with all of the gang-related activity that's going on out there, from selling drugs, robbing, killing, and all those things, I understand that you can write as a reporter, but you shouldn't write to promote that. And I think that's where the line is drawn as it relates to that.
I agree with that. I mean, sure, but what I'm getting to is the fundamental steps that can be taken that can lead us down this path.
Right.
That once we got this other thing in place, your music is the cherry on top of it.
Right.
And the other thing, the things I'm talking about is that when you don't have a fundamental respect for your own group that's being taught and passed on,
Right.
a self-respect,
Right.
a level of pride that comes, that there are certain things that I just won't do
And won't say.
as a result of my respect for the group that I'm in. But see, when we don't have that, then anything goes. And see, and this is why we pointed out that the prison industry has a relationship with the music industry.
Right. And those creators, those big major corporations that produce and promote these rappers, they actually, like you say, dictate as to what type of programming that they're going to put out there.
Because how do you make sense out of a prison industry having a relationship with the music industry?
It would have to be in the bed together.
How do we make sense out of that? And see, and let me use this simple analogy. I hope it's not too simple for some of you scientists out there.
Yes, sir.
But 3 pots on the stove boiling. One pot is boiling over, water coming all out of the pot. Your immediate senses will tell you that the fire is too high under that particular pot. My point is, we live in a world of action, reaction, cause, effect. Nothing is happening unless something produced it. This is not a magical world we live in.
Right.
If it rains, there is a cause.
Right.
If it snows, there is a cause. This is why when the police come in on crimes, they look for motives.
Right.
Something produced the anger that produced this crime.
Right.
So everything that happens to us has something producing it. And what we're getting to in a roundabout way is that if our music is filled with things that we all know are detrimental.
Yes, sir.
The murdering, wetting up your, you know how they do it, they talk.
I'm gonna give him a wet t-shirt.
Wet t-shirt. The language is clever, but they're talking about murdering each other. And it's in lots of the music. The other thing that's heavy in our hip hop today is in the disrespect of our women.
Right.
Filled with it. And it continues to get pumped over the airwaves. So if we are not in agreement with it as adults, why and how is it constantly being promoted?
Well, I like the way that you pointed out to the youngsters when we were in the class. You would say, hey, look, when you use the B word, now would you like for someone to call your mother a B?
No, we don't. And to a man, they never say yes.
Because they know at that point that Brother Wayne is right. Because if this female, this young lady is going to become a mother one day, she should be respected as such, and she shouldn't be degraded. And the thing that I want to add to that dynamic, as far as you were mentioning with the influence of the lyrics, is the drugs. When you have
another thing,
all of those chronics and different types of high-powered marijuana, and then the alcohol, and then the lean. I mean, when you promote those things, the children, the youngsters, they're being influenced because they are listening to those lyrics. They're bumping and they're formulating in their mind, hey, I gotta try that because Lil Wayne is doing it, or whatever rapper is doing it.
It's influence, y'all, that's what we're saying. And the music has a heavy influence on our people. But we have to understand where the influence is coming from. What I'm saying is we connect the dots and we can find out. Now, the enemy here, the enemy is corporate America. Corporate America is the enemy of America. It is not the enemy of just black America.
Right.
Even though we suffer the greatest, it is the enemy of poor America.
Right.
Corporate America is the enemy. When we are under the influence of corporate America, when the policies are being impacted by corporate America, corporations, where the rich is. Mm-hmm. See, what happens is that corporations are not humans.
Right.
And so corporations turn into just this entity, and its only mission as a corporation is to earn profits for its stakeholders. Or for its, when a company goes public, it has investors.
Right.
So its mission is to make a profit.
That bottom line, they don't care about no casualties, they don't care about collateral.
Because it's not a human.
Right.
It's a corporation.
Right. Right.
So that corporation ain't thinking about people.
Right.
That corporation is thinking about profits.
Sony is saying, hey, look, we need units.
That's
we
it.
need to sell this many units, and we need this rapper
That's
to
it.
say this,
That's
and
it.
this rapper will say that, and we will give him a small portion of the profit, but at the end of the day, it's all about that bottom line.
Because of what corporations are benefiting from the mass mayhem that's in the black communities.
Right.
If you would just list the corporations that make money from murder and mayhem that exist in our communities, then you would be able to connect the dots.
Right, because like you're saying, if the prison is for profit, those privatized prisons, if they're for profit, then they have an agenda. They looking at that bottom line as well.
They need clients.
Bodies.
So the prison needs clients. And so the way the prison gets clients is by having people break the law.
Commit crimes.
And the longer you can have them stay there, the better.
And that's just like that judge. That judge was actually giving the juvenile clients more time so that his buddy could make money off of them at that particular facility.
Here's a fact that we all need to understand. 90% of everything that you read, hear, and listen to is under the control of about 6 major corporations. every news story, every song, every newspaper.
AP, Apple.
Is under the control of about 6 corporations. Now, remember we said that these corporations don't have humanity at their mind. What's the goal of the corporation? Profit for the shareholders, for the people who have invested. And see, that's how you can disconnect yourself from culpability, from being, well, I'm not the one that's out there causing all of the mayhem, but you are a stakeholder in one of these corporations, and you get that profit check, that corporation check every quarter, and you're happy with it.
And then give you a parallel example so you can see this picture very clearly. It's just like with war. When you have a war, there are companies that produce bombs.
That's what we're talking about.
There are companies that produce airplanes. There are companies that produce vests. Now, in the federal prison, they actually make the vests for the soldiers.
That's what we meant by just make a list of all of the people that's making money off of the mayhem, and you'll see where the problem exists. Just on the local level, police departments, they have to hire more police. You got a lot of violence in the area. We got to get more police officers.
They're paying overtime right now. They're complaining about not having enough officers, so they have to put those officers that they do have in the status of getting overtime. So this thing is a system. That means that person as a police officer, his pay just increased due to the fact that he's getting paid overtime.
Let us make it real for you. Time Warner owns Warner Brothers Records. They own Entertainment Weekly. They own New Line Cinema. They own HBO. And they own TNT. One corporation, Time Warner. Viacom is the owner now of BET. And Viacom owns a group called Emmis Communication, which owns your hot stations. You know, in every city, you got your Hot 92 and your Hot 96s and your Hot 104s. Those are your urban radio stations. They own those. And the other group that owns all of the media is the Clear Channel. In our city, we're in Little Rock. The Clear Channel owns every one of our radio stations here. Matter of fact, they don't even try to mask it. They have a building, and they got all the radio stations in that one building. Right. You go down there, you can go to all the radio stations. You go walk out. You walk out of this room. You walk in the other room. You got another radio station. Right. They didn't even try to put them around in different places. They got all in one building.
And look at the wild, crazy concept here. They have formed a monopoly on your thinking. They have monetized your thinking. They control what you see, what you hear, what you eat, what you drink, and what you listen to.
Now you got this company called the Corrections Corporations of America. They are your, excuse me, they are your privatized prison builders. They market privatized prisons so that then the prison becomes a for-profit entity. It's a corporation. Remember, it doesn't have any feelings. They go over to your city and say you need a prison in your city because, of course, everybody's city needs more space, more jail space.
Well, we'll create it for you.
But you got to guarantee us that you're going to have 90% occupancy.
Meaning that someone has to be convicted of a crime, and not only must they be convicted, they must be sent to prison.
That's right. We need people to go to jail.
Yes, sir.
We don't just need people being charged.
Right.
We need for people to go to jail. Now, think about how they come up with all of those mandatory sentencing laws.
And look at your prosecutor, look at your judges, look at your police chiefs. Now the chiefs are saying, hey, look, we have this crime, so in order for us to alleviate this crime, we're going to have to start arresting more people. And by the way, legislatures, by the way, senators, by the way, governor, because the governor's going to sign it into law, we need them to do more time for that crime. So in other words, if they say that you want to do 70% of your conviction, that means you're going to do 7 years on 10 years.
And at one time, you know, we tried to get smart and outsmart them and get out in front of this because it was all these white judges and we said these white judges are not having any sympathy for our children. They come before these white judges, and these white judges look at them as grown criminals and give them all kind of time. So we got into the politics and political arena, and we ran black people for office, and we got us some black judges.
Right. And what did they do?
What did they do? They passed the mandatory sentencing law.
So that when that unsuspecting individual goes into that courtroom,
that judge doesn't have any discretion, the ability to use discretion.
The black judge is stuck.
He's stuck.
Just like you are. So he's gonna have to boop.
He's gonna have to do what the mandatory says on that. He doesn't get a chance to do discretion anymore.
No deviating from the numbers.
No deviating from the numbers. You got to give him what the mandatory sentencing laws say. So listen at how it's unfolding, y'all. It's fitting all together. The hip hop is crazy for a reason. Check this out one more time. The Corrections Corporations of America are the ones that own it, or set up the corporation. Well, how are you saying that the relationship is between corporations and the producers of the music people? Well, there's some people called the Vanguard Group. Look them up. Vanguard Group. Then you'll find that they are a major stakeholder in your main parent companies. Mm-hmm. We're talking Time Warner, talking Viacom, we're talking Clear Channel, we're talking Disney. Mm-hmm. Okay, these are the people that own these. Yeah, we know you got a record label. Yeah, what's your record label? Deaf World. You know, but your Deaf World record label is not independent. Right. It's owned by, you know, it's got some. You are a subsidiary of a parent. Right. But they let you name yourself, so it sound like you got your own label. Right. No, that's not how it's working, y'all. Mm-hmm. These people own these labels, and the people who are in control of these labels are also building penitentiaries. And they are saying, we need the kind of music played that will enhance our ability to do more and more crimes and more violent crimes, so we can lock them up, so we can have more and more prison stay. It's all a part of the same mission, is what we're saying.
I want to add to that. As you were speaking, I came up with a concept that will put that in a box, and maybe we can control it. Gutter hip hop. Yeah. Not underground, not gangster, but gutter.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and it keeps our people down.
It's playing to the lowest common denominator in the human being. Right. See, the human being, we have the potential to be both. We have the potential to be godly, and we have the potential to be devilish. Right. And either of them can be stimulated and brought out of you. Right. And so all they do is to stimulate that devilishness in you and make you live on the lower self, or like some of the scientists who are listening. Right. You have a body that has a head, and then you have a body that has a lower head, which is the stomach. Right. And so that's where it breaks off at right there. The navel, the stomach is the head of the lower body.
The appetite.
The appetite.
Yes, sir.
So that you can't control your appetites, fulfill it. Right. And that's what happens. And then you as a young person, because again, we laid this out, beginning with dereliction of the adults. Right. We failed our young people by not giving them the legacy of the struggle.
The history.
See, they don't have that. They don't have the self-respect and the pride that comes along with struggling to overcome slavery and Jim Crow and all of those things that we had to overcome in order to get to where we are today. We decided that we didn't need to teach them that.
And that's the sad irony of integration. Once we became integrated, like Brother Wayne pointed out on the start of the show, we became individuals in and of ourselves. We don't have the group concept. We don't have the unity. Right. We don't have the love for self and the love for our community. We're individuals now. And that's why you can get the Lil Waynes. And I'm not just jumping on Lil Wayne and Rick Ross. I'm saying that those individuals are in the news right now about their lyrics.
And I think it's because perhaps we really wanted to believe that we had won. That the struggle for civil rights was really the struggle for our human rights. Right. And we wanted to believe that everything now from this point on is going to be only based on merit.
And that
We really wanted to believe that.
it's cool now.
It's
Everything's
cool.
all right.
So now that we it hadn't been for affirmative action, we wouldn't have had this middle class created.
Right.
So now that we're in the middle class, which is the working poor, we can now not mandate, not teach our children about what we had to fight and struggle and get to where we are. So our poor children come along unaware that there's a struggle because we went back to everything reversed back. Y'all made a little progress, but now you got to fight for it. They're not equipped for the fight because they don't know what the fight was about. So they're just participating in whatever stimulation comes. And here we are now dealing with the corporations that's in control of the music because they're interested in bodies. So what they're doing now is controlling the behavior of our young people with violent music, with anti-music, with disrespectful music of women, all of the stuff that keeps us on the gutter level. And then we blame each other for it. And we beat up Lil Wayne and say, and Rick Ross and all the rest of these poor little brothers who have been brainwashed into just trying to entertain. And see the message that corporate America gives us, because remember, corporations have no humanity. The message that they gave us was articulated by the great 50 Cent.
Right.
And that message is still in us because it was such an appropriate thing to tell people.
What?
Get rich
Or die trying.
or die trying.
Now,
What kind of a message is that to give a human being?
I want to make sure that it's known that we have to get out of this mind state of being embarrassed that we had a struggle. You know, it's almost like we here in America.
I can't stand those people.
I mean, because that makes us think that we didn't have to do something to get where we're at today. Everyone has struggled. Those immigrants that came over here with nothing, they struggled.
Right.
But our struggle, yeah, it's true. It was different, but let's celebrate in that struggle and continue to strive and overcome the possibilities that we see before us.
One of the greatest quotes of Martin Luther King was, "Undeserved suffering is redemptive."
Right.
I love that because that is the case. When we have gone through what we've gone through as a people, which was undeserved, because to this day, we haven't mistreated white people.
Right.
to this day, they may be suspecting some mistreatment from us, but we've yet to mistreat them.
Right.
We reserve most of our mistreatment for each other.
Right, and it's kind of bizarre, but like you say, that Willie Lynch syndrome is live and well.
It's live and well. He's still in business.
Right.
But all of that has to do with the control that they have over us, and especially through the music. Now, we can take the music back. The music began, hip hop started. We give you that history, a little of it. But you remember when it was all about knowledge and getting your history, and a lot of the artists that was coming up was real famous for talking about history and
the conscious hip hop.
Poor Righteous Teachers,
KRS-One,
Mo D,
Eric B. and Rakim.
Yes, they were sprinkling the African knowledge in there. See, then what happened? A lot of those youngsters was coming from colleges,
right?
And they were getting impacted, you know, in college, you know, from the speakers that was in the colleges, and they was coming out with the hip hop. Well, they flipped that on us.
Right.
They flipped that on us by highlighting those poor brothers and sisters out west.
Right.
Who was having a reality check out there with police brutality. And now we know what they was going through because the history told us with the Rampart Division and all those bad cops they had out there. There was a lot that they could talk about.
Right.
And they was only telling the truth.
Yes.
But they put it to music and it hit. But somebody saw how that could be turned into what we really need.
Well, they took the music, like you just stated, and they coupled it with the big screen. So you had the Ice-T's, NWA, all of those rappers, Snoop Dogg. And what happened, at the end of the day, they put it on the big screen with the movie Colors. And then it blew up.
Games and stuff.
Right. So those individuals that hadn't been exposed to it were now seeing it on the big screen, and they were also able to listen to it. So they wanted to be just like them, because we have a tendency to be those that emulate. So we saw the guys on the West Coast, the boys in the hood. Mm-hmm. They say, hey, look, we can be that way too. We can be Bloods and we can be Crips. Let's play Bloods and Crips here in Little Rock.
And we all went through a heck of a time period where that was a terrible thing in our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. But again, remember the analogy: 3 pots on the stove, 1 boiling over. Some produced it. Right. See, when we saw that explosion of gang warfare in our neighborhood, we didn't realize what was producing it. Right. Then the crack cocaine came in. Now we know, of course, that was a part of something too, where they promoted, they got the crack in our neighborhood. You see, what we have to be able to do now is what we're attempting to do here, just a little of, is re-investigate. Right. Go back and re-look at the history so that we can make the present make sense. Then it gives us, it gives us the ability to move forward with a little bit more wisdom.
How did we get here?
How did we get here?
What caused this?
What caused it?
What are we going to do to cancel it out and reverse it?
That's right. That's what we have to know.
And if we don't do anything, how can we expect to complain if we're doing nothing?
Right. Because it's there. What is it? History is best qualified to reward our research.
Our research.
All we have to do is to go back a little, and just now we got 20/20 hindsight. We can say, oh, okay, when that went down, this is what caused this. And since you adults are so caught up now, or us adults are so caught up in our day-to-day bill paying, we have to reach for the young people.
And then that's the neglect that the children suffer, because we're trying to pay the bills and have a life. But we are neglecting our children, and our children are suffering, and you see the crime as a result of them suffering from the lack of the knowledge, suffering from neglect.
And that happens to be a part of our curriculum that we use. We got a piece to call, How Did We Get Here?
Right.
And then, and when you ought to see the expressions on our young people's faces when we deal with the crack epidemic. They see, these are the children of the crack epidemic. Their parents, a lot of them, their fathers have gone to jail in those mandatory sentencing laws. Right. And they all locked away and don't know why. All they know was their dad. The street tells them that their dad was a dope dealer.
Right, and that's it. It's just like they don't tell them how he became a dope dealer. What caused him to become a dope dealer?
And then now music sits around and glorifies it and gets him caught up in it.
Right, and then you see that generational issue, whereas that son
meeting up with dad down at the prison.
And then you say, man, that's a shame, man. The boy's down there with his dad. Mm-hmm. And then he has a son that is a grandson of his dad.
See, these are the kinds of teachings that we should have to be able to do at our school. After we've learned to read and write and do simple math, we need to figure out what has happened to us. We need to have classrooms on why things are the way they are, again, so that we can marshal our footsteps in the future with a lot more wisdom.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we're probably gonna have to do another show on this.
That goes to the show of brainwashing, because that is part of the concept that we're speaking on, because when you take these lyrics, you take this history that we're dealing with, we don't know how we got from this point to this point. Right. And then all of these murders and people on drugs, prison, industrial complex. I mean, we don't know. We claim we know, but do we really know?
And unfortunately, what happens when you don't know is you start blaming the victims.
Right.
And that's what we saw earlier in the day, where the victims start blaming themselves for their own inadequacy, as opposed to pointing out that, listen, something happened to you to put you in this condition. Right. And it happened to you without your knowledge.
And then I asked a rhetorical question, what are you going to do about it? Are you just going to stay in that sad state and be a blame person? Right. Oh, it's bad because of this, it's bad because of that. No, you have to get up one morning and say, hey, look, I'm going to change what changed me.
How many times does the victim get a chance to yell?
One time. I know you don't want me to talk about that.
If you've been victimized, victimized.
One time.
The victim gets to say, hell, one time.
One time. Call the police one time. Don't go around the neighborhood for the next 20 years talking about I was victimized back in 1973.
And somebody come up on you and you still laying on the ground. And they say, what happened to you? I got robbed.
Back when?
And hit in the head. When that happened? 20 years ago? Yeah. They would think you're crazy.
Right.
Oh man, you can't make that an issue right now.
Right. We got to start operating on a different level of existence because this hip hop thing is here, and we're gonna have to start changing the way that we absorb it. Because if we don't change as a listening audience, the rappers or the MCs are not going to change.
And we cannot act as if it's not impacting our children. It does impact you. Music impacts you.
Right.
Why do you think that when you walk in Kroger's, you hear music playing now?
They call it shopping music.
That's right, man. And the brothers, we're gonna do a book. You know, we're gonna talk about the brothers' book, Brainwash, Tom Morrell, who really, you know, nowadays you notice how, and we're gonna wrap it up. But nowadays you notice how they use the Motown music to sell everything.
Jingles, that's what they call them. Every advertisement has a jingle to it. Look at the Sprite. They went totally hip hop with the scratching and everything. You throwing Sprites and everything.
Because music can make you feel better.
You can even taste that Sprite when you listen to that Sprite commercial. Look at it.
And when you hear Marvin Gaye get the belting out, I've been really trying. You can't help but to look at that screen and wonder what they talking about.
What they said.
Yeah. So music is very impactful. Right now, corporate America is controlling the music of our youth. They got these artists putting out the worst possible songs, the worst possible lyrics, nothing but murder of themselves, disrespecting the women, drug use and abuse. All that is on purpose, and we need to put a stop to it. And most importantly, we need to warn our babies that this is all a part of leading them to the penitentiaries.
The listening audience, I also want to ask you to put it out. Say, Lil Wayne, we love you, but you can't write no lyrics like that about Emmett Till. Man, Emmett Till, you cannot do that. Please apologize to the Till family, Brother Wayne.
The apologies certainly are due and appropriate because, and when we do a piece, part of our curriculum is an Emmett Till piece because we recognize the importance of Emmett Till. Emmett Till is the father of the civil rights movement, and all of you should know this because when that happened in 1955, that was right before Rosa Parks did her thing on the bus, and that was the reason why she did her thing on the bus because he was so upset about what had happened to Emmett Till. So ultimately, his life was the catalyst for the change that we end up experiencing right today. And
obviously, I don't think Brother Wayne, Lil Wayne, actually knew the history. I think that he saw an image of Emmett Till one day, or his name one day, and he just threw it in his lyrics.
Thought that would be a clever thing to say.
Right.
I know the impact. That's our point. Our point is that because our young people haven't been taught what a self-hating African is.
Right.
Just like the Jewish people have what a self-hating Jew is, there's certain things that you don't do. We don't have that among ourselves. So our young people just operate on whatever stimulus that comes along. And right now the stimulus is get rich or die trying. And that don't mean no respecter of anything.
Right.
And so, but we're gonna have to take this up again.
Okay.
I think we hope that you've gotten enough to spur you to begin the process yourself of learning.
Right.
Because ultimately, that's what we're calling for. We're calling for a conscious community, a conscious nation of us who won't fall for
anything.
Yeah, anything, because we believe that we are capable of doing what it is that we have to do. It's just that we have to learn. And once we learn, we will implement. What it says, if you thought and understood as I, you would act as I.
Right. You learn better, you do better.
We're no different from you. Thanks again. Radio program. You can tune in live via the internet if you like. KABF.org. KABF.org. 88.3 FM. Every Sunday morning at 8:30. That's Central Standard Time. Tune in to see what you think about live television or radio show. Also, don't forget to go to our website. Give us a call. Come in. Let us get to your babies. We got a curriculum for them. www.mibnest.com. So you about to say something? Again, thanks for listening. Hopefully you'll continue to tune in to us. This is Brother Wayne.
Nobody know it all as soon as you think.
Let us say to your peace and have a great rest of the week.
More to survive, we must evolve, things change. Just when you think you've seen it all, we trip, we stumble, but we get back in stride. Each day all the way, one step at a time. Don't want to let my ego and pride make me blind. The elders say when you stop growing, that's when you die. The one who gets the knowledge is the one who asks why. Through the course of life, you gon' taste some humble pie, but I love it. It makes me appreciate the things that I take for granted. Gaining insight and understanding. Each one teach one, we got to pass it on. Keep doing the knowledge, building and adding on. With faith in the assumption that nobody knows everything, but everybody knows something.
Keep on learning and soaking up